Okay, so getting back to, you mentioned a minute ago, you were talking about how I think you said maybe 50% of the dog deaths right now are behavioral euthanasia, basically, right? So I always
One in three.
1 in 3, okay.
Yeah. The third most popular, sorry, the third
No,
most
that's okay. Yeah.
common reason dogs are euthanized. Yeah.
Yep. So obviously that's a large number, right? That's a large percentage of the dogs that are dying, obviously, is for that reason. So I go back and forth all the time on, why, getting back to like, what is the agenda behind pushing some of these ideologies and stuff like that. And it was interesting, you mentioned, with a lot of these behavior cases, right, or more difficult dogs, we know as good trainers that we could either root out most of that or teach the owner how to manage the dog and handle the dog much better, where those behavioral issues are, borderline not a problem, right? You might not fix the dog, but you could at least get things to a place where they could live out the rest of their lives with the owners, right? So one of the big things that pops in my head is one of the agendas just that they're trying to make it so that dangerous dogs in general, there's no fighting chance at them, and we're resorting to just euthanizing them at that point so that we could kind of get the population of dogs to a more tame standard. Does that make sense?
It makes sense, but in the UK, I think what we're dealing with now with this behaviour is a byproduct of 20 years of, dare I say, bullshit. Mm-hmm. We've had 20 years of trying to push on the notion to people that dogs are babies, and I think this starts with the major rescues, because I understand it. If you want to get people involved and rescue the dogs that are in your kennels, then you have to get them triggered emotively. So you start with, this dog just needs love and it needs this, and it's had no affection and no nothing. Yeah. And people go, oh, I want to save the dog. But as a byproduct of drawing them in that emotive way, you push on the notion that is all that dog needs, and it's a little baby, and it doesn't, and you kind of waive the actual reality of owning that dog and what you have to go through in order to create wanted behavior and discourage unwanted behavior. Yeah. I think that's what's happened. And combine that with this force-free ideology and the consumer-driven market. Obviously, everyone jumps on the bandwagon. If we can draw them in emotively with that, well, we'll do the same thing, and we'll sell you this potion and this no-pull harness and all this kind of stuff. Yeah. And what it's led to over 20 years is a nation of people that have an unrealistic expectation of what it is to own a dog. Yeah, that's and have even less of a realistic expectation of what it takes to train that dog. And I think what we're dealing with now with the ridiculous numbers of unwanted behavior, dog-related deaths, things like that, I think it's a byproduct of all them things. Yeah. And I think somewhere in between, the powers that be, the major corporations, they realize this shift in dynamic, but they realize that they could capitalize on it and make massive profits. I mean, I say it all the time. I think it's atrocious that rescues such as the Dogs Trust can invest considerable amounts of money in research that pushes their own agenda when it's blatantly obvious why they do so, because they have a business that gets all this stock for free, sells it for money, and then people willingly go, here's my hard-earned money. I think it's absolutely atrocious that they get to invest that money in bullshit in order to push their own ideologies to further their income.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many so many things you can kind of point out, especially in the rescue world, where here we see, getting to, just crafting stories about dogs to try to get funding, right? Like we see all the time. Like there was one that recently went around, a local rescue to here. Or I don't know if it was here, whatever, somewhere in the States. And it was a dog that they listed out this crazy long story of how it's been through like 4 different homes and attacked this person and killed this dog and blah, blah, blah. But had this big sob story at the end about how people just didn't understand this dog, and the dog is coming to their sanctuary. And then right at the end of it was like a GoFundMe link for it. And they were just collecting just thousands and thousands of dollars off of this dog that has killed other dogs, seriously tried to injure other people.
It's unbelievable. How you grip the public with dogs. Like you could put a GoFundMe for a child with leukemia, and the dog that was on the streets would raise more money. It's unbelievable. And I think that they got wise to that a long time ago, and that's where the money come in. Like there was a lot of like taxpayer money went into the DEFRA study, which is the only study that they quoted to the government when they pushed to try and ban the e-collar. I don't know if you know much about the DEFRA study, but in short, it was an absolute shit show. And it was £500,000 of taxpayers' money on bullshit. From the very get-go, the dogs that were trained on e-collars were trained up Scotland in the snow.
Yeah.
And the dogs that were trained in a reward-based approach were down south in the sun. Straight away, you haven't replicated the same circumstances for a study, different. So it means nothing.
Yeah.
And I just think it's absolutely atrocious that the taxpayer funded that.